Welcome back. I am delighted to introduce you to this panel, which is hopefully going to be amazing. It is entitled The Curator and the Artists, and I have this huge privilege of being surrounded by four fabulous artists, four amazing artists, and we heard Carmen Reviriego, who qualified them as mid-career artists, which is interesting because from my perspective, you are so unbelievably young that it's impressive to be young and already a mid-career artist. But, a top collector from Chicago told me once that there are three stages in life: youth, middle age, and you are amazing. So, which means the same thing for an artist. When you're a mid-career artist, it means that your amazing phase is yet ahead of you, and that is very, very encouraging. Now, we have to speak during exactly 45 minutes, and I was told that I have to speak with each of you for 8 minutes. I'm very, very bad at math, but 4 times 8 is 32 minutes, so we will have the chance of speaking for 32 minutes, which then leaves still some minutes left where we can all speak together. No, that's the way Carmen wanted it to be done, and we will, of course, do it the way Carmen wants it to be done. So we do start in alphabetical order, because that's very important. There are no other significance to the sequence. We will start now with Rosana Antolí. Rosana, please tell me how you decided to become an artist and how you started your career.
I have it quite clear since university. I have quite clear that I wanted to become an artist and to be part of the system of art. I knew I didn't want to be a curator, a designer. I knew quite clear what my path should be, and I'm very stubborn. So I started, with my ideas very clear since then.
So already as a teenager, you knew you wanted to become an artist?
Not a teenager, no. At university. As a teenager, I like maths, I like arts, but at the university doing fine arts is when I had this, this punch, like this is.
And what was the moment of breakthrough which kind of really put you on the stage?
Like the one I experienced that is like, this is the path, like, I remember I was seeing an exhibition in Barcelona, and I remember all the people standing in front of a painting and stopping their way. They were like walking and they stayed like that. And it's like, I love this feeling that when people have their path moving, there is something so powerful that can make them stop and travel and alienate themselves. And I said, I want to do this.
And what, in terms of type of work, was what attracted you most? Because I've seen that you've donated a fantastic work that I will have the privilege of selling at auction later on tonight at the gala. And by the way, thank you so much for your very generous donation. And the work that you've donated is a oil on canvas?
Yes.
And here we see mostly performances. And,
I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I work with different media, but the performative is always the core of my practice. So even if I do installations or sculptures in the museum, performances or paintings, the performative is always there. So when I work with a painting, for me is essential that it has the component of time, or when you see the painting, you can see the layers and the discussions I'm having with myself, erasing and drawing and constructing these kind of movements and actions that are happening there, these choreographies.
And what is your feeling in market terms? And I'm sorry to speak about market because I do come from that perspective. I find it fascinating when today artists have more ways to express themselves than ever before. And also it's accepted that an artist would try many different ways of expressing themselves as opposed to just sticking to doing one thing. And yet, if you look at the art fairs or you look at the main contemporary art auctions, mostly it is oil on canvas, works on paper, sculptures, and all the other many different disciplines have far less traction from a market perspective. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think, obviously, when you work or when you do an installation or things like that, you always respond to a context. Like when a museum commissions your work, you have an scenario to play, so you can try things, experiment with the space, with the materials. When you go to an art fair, you have a limited space to show your work, and also the collectors, I guess also they have a limited space. Are there places that maybe they cannot, have a bigger thing, or yes, but I think it's, like you need to know also what are you responding with your work and what is the context that your work is going to be dealing with.
What is your ultimate dream, professionally speaking?
My what?
Your ultimate dream,
My
ambition.
ultimate dream, like to be fulfilled with this, and I'm very ambitious. So yeah, like to continue doing this thing that it just struck me and takes me, like it's a passion that I cannot deny, I cannot get away from. So for me, like my dream will be like, to have that fulfillment, like, okay, I have experiment, I have play, I have narrated and created these stories, and I was able to tell them and to show them in all these places. So, yeah.
What sign of zodiac are you?
Lion.
Lion. Which day? 14th of August.
You?
Excellent sign. First of all, I must preface that the art world is great because it takes all signs of the zodiac to make the art world great. And when you interview somebody for a job, you're not allowed to ask any personal questions, and I can't help asking that question. So I always preface by saying it takes, to make a great company, you need all signs of the zodiac. So, but it's just a personal curiosity of mine. And now there is a young lady who very kindly was going to raise her arm each time the 8 minutes are up. The 8 minutes are up. So thank you so much, and thank you again for donating the work tonight. Will you be there tonight?
I will be.
All right. So I hope we can do fantastic results, because it's all for the Royal Academy de Belles Arts de San Fernando. So it's fantastic that you
Thank you.
donated such a beautiful work. Now. Donna Huanca, you are a star, a mega star, because you're very widely known. You are already what I call a brand. There are very few artists that become a brand, and Donna Huanca is a name that is being dropped everywhere. In people love to name dropping, and yours is a very frequently dropped name, which is a great success in itself. And I remember I came across your work completely accidentally. I was visiting the Zabludowicz Foundation in London, and you and Anita Zabludowicz are very, very dear friends. And so we just walked through the building, and suddenly I saw this incredible, amazing performance with yourself painted over and in an extraordinary performance. And I said, wow, that's the way I love performance art. And so your practice, in a similar way, is also all-encompassing, very much performance-based. But from the market perspective, again, it's more of your canvas, your more traditional mediums that are the ones that sees in art fairs and auctions. And what can you tell me about how you got going and what was your dream and what gave you the kind of click at the beginning?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Carmen, and pleasure to meet you. I started off as a musician, so I played drums and I was really in love with music and composing sound. So when I went to art school, I was studying painting, but I was more in love with the idea of experience painting. So for a long time, I never wanted to paint on canvas, and that took me many years to paint on canvas because I believe that the room was the canvas and all of these elements were like part of a cosmos that you would see and understand as one painting. So that's why the performance element is so important to me, to have all of these different unknown moments that, because my performers are not instructed with any specific choreography. So when you see the performance, it's actually an authentic moment because I don't even know what's going to happen. So the only instructions I give them is to move slowly and with power. And for me, it's like a live meditation. So the paintings came from documenting their bodies because I will start to paint on the body at first, and it's very intuitive. I don't really know how it will turn out. It really is led by the conversation I'm having with the person when I'm painting them. And then I'll scan the body and find what I call perfect paintings. And then in the beginning, it was just, I felt like that was my painting, like the photograph of this live body. And then later I started to paint over this canvas. And so this is how I arrive at the painting, which I think is, a very zoomed in version of like the whole experience. But when you see a performance, I think you actually see the whole work come together, where all these elements that you really don't know where to focus on are coming into focus. And I really like to think about the idea of looking at everything in a peripheral view, because that's how I paint. I paint in a room with many canvases, and I sort of not look at one directly. I, go around and paint all of them at the same time. So I'm able to really not be attached to one finished work, but when it's finished, and it's a lot about restraint, and I really try to show that. But my work is very colorful, very bright. I grew up in Chicago and also spent summers in Bolivia, so I think that really informed my vision of like what a total artwork can be, which is, I feel like, is an experience, not so much like something that's finished or dead. So I really love the performative element of the work.
Yes, well, I must say I love the work that you've donated for tonight. It's gorgeous. And so was that also created, as you said, simultaneously with a lot of other works?
Yes, I tend to take the documentation of one performance and then have those be the root of the next group of works. And that is part of a work that was in about a couple years ago for Copenhagen Contemporary. I had a big solo show there. And so the documentation of the performance will become the next group of paintings. So, but it's always an ongoing thing. Like I work with sound, sculpture, painting, performance. I need all of that input.
Yes, I must say, when I was fully immersed and walked into that big room at the Zabludowicz Foundation in London, it was overwhelming. It was really, really very exciting, and it was very coherent because the sounds, the visual aspects, the dance, the performance, and the physical works, it all really was one. And you didn't feel it was a disparate things. it really struck me. It was very, very powerful. So
Thank you. That was an interesting work because I thought about the whole show as like 7 layers of skin. So the 7 auras, like I try to take these like narratives and break them down into a physical work. And so in the beginning, you would see this like giant structure that there was models like painting live. And it was I felt like that was like an invisible room. And then as you went in deeper into the show, you would penetrate through the skin and the body, and you would see the organs and then the paintings. And so there was like, in my mind, there's always like a narrative that I need that is sort of universal, which is, life, death, decay. And so I really try to not make work just for like the art world, but like for, anybody who comes in, can understand it and be arrested by a physical work.
So interesting what you say about skins. I was at the Design Museum last week in London and was shown some projects of young designers, and there was one project where it's all about skin, and it's a work. If you acquire the work, well, it lives literally. There's a skin developing and growing, and so it's absolutely fascinating. What sign of zodiac are you, Donna?
I'm a Libra with a Gemini rising and a Pisces moon.
Oh my God!
I'm also and I do ask people what their sign is when I'm interviewing them. So, what are you?
I'm a Scorpio with Libra ascendant, and my moon is in Leo. So,
okay, very interesting.
Know it all. I'm sure we're way above the 8 minutes. That's this time. Okay. All right. So now I have the great pleasure to ask you. Now I lost my glasses, which is dramatic, but
There.
here they are. And now I am so happy to have you, Sofia Mitsola. Sofia Mitsola amongst us, and also I saw this gorgeous work that I've donated for tonight, and I know that Pilar Correas represents you. And, that's maybe an interesting to know for an artist who gets traction and all that. How did the meeting happen with Pilar, and how? Because the choice of a gallery is important, of course, for the gallerist, but is very important for the artist. And in the old days, that was the sole way you could get traction. And nowadays, with social media, there's so many, the street art, there's publicity, etc. There's so many different ways for an artist to get an audience. But still, I think the relationship between a gallery and particularly a person who champions and believes in the work of an artist is absolutely key. So maybe you can speak about what got you going as an artist, and then also how that step took place in your working with Pilar.
Sure. So right after graduation, a few months after graduating from my MA at Slade, I got my first solo show at Jerwood, which is a foundation in London for emerging artists. I was very lucky to have that show. I'm very proud of that moment, because it's a step right of school, and most of the people graduating from school, you don't really know what's the next step, how you're going to proceed. And I had this show that lasted for this solo show that lasted for 3 months. So I had a lot of studio visits, and I had a lot of people coming to the show, posting about the show. So there was a lot of attention. I mean, in a small scale, of course. And this is how I started having some studio visits with galleries, and Pilar was one of those galleries, and I've been admiring their program for years, since I I was in London, and I thought it's a really good place for me to be and like work with them, because they have a brilliant contemporary artists, young artists, and also they have like older generation of artists, but they do a lot of video works. They have a lot of sculpture. It's not just a painting program. So I thought it would be a good place for me to start.
I love that work in particular. I think it's amazing.
This is Sirens.
What?
This
The
is Sirens. Yeah.
Ah, now you know how Ulysses felt.
This is and yeah, I was thinking about this idea of these almost teenage girls like lounging on a bed, and then it goes really fast. But this is another painting. It's called Villa Venus, and I was thinking about a grand entrance and almost like a theater set that there is dancers on the side, and the main figure is coming from the sea and is merging out of water.
Wonderful. What can you tell us about the work you donated for tonight?
Will we have some time? I can tell you a few things. Is there a picture of it somewhere? I much prefer looking at it.
There is possibly a picture of it. It's coming. So.
It's coming. Okay.
But.
So So I've always been very interested in the idea of how women are portrayed in painting, especially, and in art. And when I started working with figures for the first time, here she is. During the Slade, I started working with a female figure, and I was really interested of how to portray a female character, but give them a little bit of something archaic. For example, I was looking a lot at sphinxes. I was looking a lot at sirens, and I was thinking about, when I was making this work, I was thinking that I wanted to make this character that she almost looks like a 50s, 60s Elizabeth Taylor kind of star, dressed in white fur and jewels, but you don't really know if she's wearing the fur or if this fur is part of her body. So she's a kind of a sphinx, and I named the painting Faux Fur, Faux Her, because she's like a trickster, or she's like enigmatic. You don't really know how she's looking at you, how she's smiling at you. She's this sphinx, contemporary sphinx lady.
These were exactly the questions I was asking myself when I was looking at it. Yeah. And it's this mystery that you convey so well. And I think it's a wonderful work that you've donated. And I hope it will do phenomenally well tonight.
Thank you.
But it's really, really great. And what is fascinating is this, your work is figurative, and there is this whole, it's not a movement, but I would say there is, when you look now, and art fairs, kind of figuration and kind of neo-surrealism, I would call it. I mean, so many things from 20th century art which were not looked at for many, many years, which are now looked at in a completely new light as a result of artists like you and some of your peers and colleagues who also paint in a very figurative manner. And I think it's totally fascinating to witness that. And I always feel that through art that is being done now, we look at art of the past with different eyes or fresh eyes. What sign of zodiac are you?
Oh yeah, so Aries, and then rising Sagittarius, and then moon Taurus.
Fantastic. Yes, very, very precise.
Very precise.
I'm okay with the 8 minutes. Yes, it's done. All right. Okay, well, thank you so much. And we will hopefully have the minutes left where we can all speak together. But now I'm so happy with Paolo, Salvador, to have you here today. And you are also working with wonderful gallery, which is Perez Projects. And Perez Projects has an amazing track record of always having discovered artists that then became really big over time. And it's kind of like a research laboratory when in the art field, because when you want to see the more intriguing new artists. Anyway, tell me how you became an artist. What is your inner fire? What was your motivation? And what gave you the big break?
Thanks for inviting me. I think like I started painting since I was a child, basically encouraged by my grandmother, who brought me to all the museums and always buy me paints and enrolled me to painting courses. And then I just ended up in art school without thinking that too much. And it was a long program, like 6 years, where you have like a different training in painting. And after that, I stayed in Lima for a few years, and I thought like it was not enough for me, so I wanted to study abroad. And I went to the UK, and I enrolled to the Slade School, and since then, all these changes have like nurtured my practice and helped me to explore more into my inner world and follow my instinct in that way.
Oh, that's wonderful. And who are the artists that inspire you most? Who are your rivals? I always find it interesting when sometimes in life you owe your rivals or your enemies, in inverted commas, more than you owe your friends. And you always need to have good enemies or good rivals, because that spurs you on to really become excellent. And are there some contemporary artists that you look upon and feel, wow, she or he are so amazing? That's the kind of quality that I want to attain. Or are you measuring yourself with art history? You don't really look too much at what your peers are doing and are more measuring yourselves with art of the past?
I think from both. I mean, living in London was a huge change for me because I was studying history through books. And when I started traveling and I could see, like, for example, Francis Bacon on the flesh, it makes a huge change. In London, you have like great exhibitions constantly, like Michael Armitage or Peter Doig or Alison Katz. They were like huge major exhibitions that I enjoy in London. But at the same time, like, I cannot ignore, like, even like coming here to Madrid and enjoy Goya's and the whole tradition in Spanish painting that is so connected with the place I come from, which is Peru. And we have this whole like Hispanic tradition that keeps you alive, and you understand things through the construction of religion, through like this syncretism that stay over the centuries. So I would say for me is both at the same time. I constantly are checking the past to get more informed and look with different eyes, and have this sense of historicism that I think is important for acknowledge this reality.
Yes, you've also donated a wonderful work that will be included in the auction tonight to benefit the Royal Academy of San Fernando. And I've posted it on Instagram last night, middle of the night, and I apologize because I had to cut it off, because when you put a series of works, you have to choose. Either they are all vertical or they're all horizontal. So I only got the left part of your horizontal work, and when I see at all your works, I think you've donated a fantastic one and a very, very strong one. And I would like to reiterate my gratitude to all of the artists, because not only are you, each of you, hugely talented, but also very generous. And then you will see, the more successful you become, the more people will come and ask you for donations all the time, all the time. And I always feel bad for the most successful artists because they are hounded on a day in, day out. And when you write about the artists, you say they're good and all that, but the generous aspect, there are also some very stingy ones, but the generous aspect is never mentioned. And so, for instance, Tracy Emin is hugely, hugely generous. Damien Hirst is incredibly generous. I have sold literally millions of works by him for various charities, and these things are never mentioned anywhere, and I think it's an important aspect to show that in the art world, in the creative world, that successful artists who have made it do give back. That is something definitely worthwhile mentioning. Now, what is your sign of zodiac?
I'm a double Cancer.
Double Cancer. Amazing. Yes. Now, a question that I also ask occasionally, if you could be an animal, what animal would you like to be?
An otter.
What?
Otter.
An otter. That's fascinating. I've never heard anybody tell me that he wanted to be an otter. That's very interesting, because usually when the animal you choose to be, that says a lot about your character. I did once the rounds of my colleagues in a work meeting, and I asked one colleague, what would you like to be? And he answered a skunk. And so I didn't know if it was out of protest at my stupid questions, or if genuinely that colleague of mine wanted to be a skunk. I think we've covered the 4 times 8 minutes, so now is free for all. And I see a question in the second row. Yes, tell me.
Otter, nutria, aquatica.
What is the translation? Amubia?
Nutria, una nutria aquática.
Of the otter.
Yes. Well, I can't translate it into any language, so I'm afraid I can't help you there. Any other questions that you may have to any of the artists? Or yes?
Yes. For me, the animal is kind of like a device to navigate through different metaphors. So I don't have like a specific meaning. In fact, like I wouldn't say it's a specific animal. It's more the idea of the animal, and it can hold, again, these multiple meanings that come from life experience, that come from the search for identity and expression. I like to leave the animal to be this echo of what is happening in the narrative of the painting. But the reason I choose to start painting these animals was because in my high school in Peru, we used to have a zoo for endangered species. So we were like really close to animals, to jaguars, to pumas, to birds. So I grew up in that context of looking at animals and trying to understand what are the roles they play with our own perspective and engagement with it.
That's actually really fascinating to hear that, because there is, I find a whole movement of artists who are now focusing on nature and endangered species, animals, and I wanted to curate an exhibition called Paradise Lost, focusing on all the very interesting art that is being made that has also this nostalgia of nature before we destroyed it. And did you ever paint an otter?
No, I wish. I think I'm more familiar with these animals that were kind of close to me. Otters are more like, I think they are a lot in California, but I just love how authors live life. You know, like they get like a piece of rock and they live with that for their entire life. And that thing for me is like painting. It's like a technique you learn and you keep with you. So I quite connected in that way.
It's a wonderful explanation. And are we up completely? Yes, I believe so. So thank you so much. It was really inspiring and wonderful to meet you all, to listen to you, and I'm highly impressed by the artworks that you do. And usually I've always found when you love an artwork and then subsequently meet the artist, you always love the artist as well. But that's why I always first want to see the artwork, because I don't want to be influenced by the personality of the artist. Then if you love the artwork, then I want to meet the artist. And anyway, thank you again so much.